Good morning, everybody. It is I, Maggie Rose Cunningham, here to bring you Middle Earth readings for this week. It is the day of the full moon today. So as you are coming and settling in, whether you are joining me live, whether you are joining me via the recording, we'll just have a little bit of a check-in. My question for you is, does the full moon affect you? Does the full moon affect you? And if so, be lovely to hear, how. How does the full moon affect you? We have a full moon in Iwaz. Here we go. I'm just going to show you that Iwaz rune here. So here we have the Iwaz rune. And the reason that I'm asking the question, does the full moon affect you? And if so, how does it affect you? Is because it's something that I've been digging into, and because it's not often that we actually have a session at the time of the full moon. Normally it's coming later in the week. And I have so many interesting conversations with people about, no, I don't feel it at all, or they feel it, but it feels different. It feels unique in some way to them. So the question might be, does the full moon affect you? It might also be, how does this full moon affect you? Because I think that's something that's important, is that different full moons can bring very different energies. We know that across the world, different cultures named their full moons. We have some of those names, not a huge number. We have some of those names from the Anglo-Saxon, and we have some good guesses from some of the Norse and the Icelandic. But when you look and it says, strawberry moon or wolf moon or whatever it is, normally those come from other cultures, not from the Germanic cultures, and that's largely because we just don't have those records anymore, although we can be pretty certain that those moons did have names. They were certainly counted and very important in terms of the calendar. And one of the reasons why I changed Middle Earth readings from being through the calendar month to being lunar is because I am very, very interested in helping people to disconnect a little bit from the industrial and the sort of clock-based schedules that we have, and that work very well for machines in our society and have great impact for us in terms of things like train times and appointment times. It's wonderful to have a frame of reference that is shared across the world, so we can all arrive at 11 o'clock here at Middle Earth readings and know what that means. But in terms of thinking about our energy management or our ability to connect with spirit, or how we're doing in terms of our dreamscapes, or I'm feeling a little bit over the place and I'm not entirely sure why, those sorts of things don't necessarily work with clock time. So does the full moon affect you? And if so, how? Morning, Esther, you have Urus for the lunar month. And we are going to be covering Urus today in terms of our deep dive runes. So just in terms of what's going to happen, we're going to look at the lunar energy a little bit more. We're going to talk about the planetary movements. We've already mentioned that we have the full moon in Iwaz. I'm going to talk a little bit about the significance of that. We have 2 other planetary movements for us to look at as well. And we're going to take a deep dive into 5 runes today. So a little bit of heads up with the ones we're going to be working with. So we're going to be working with Iwaz because we have that full moon energy. We're going to be working with Urus. We've got Odin's chariot moving into Urus this week. We're going to be working with Northes. This one just came up out of a drawer. I did a reading. I was like, yes, Northes wants to chat with us this week. We're going to be working with Gibo. Northes and Gibo have a really interesting relationship, so I'm glad that they've come up together, that they wanted to come and play together. And we're going to be working with Perthro. It should be that way, I think, on your screen, although obviously screens sometimes flip. And then we're back at Iowa. So we're going to be working with those 5 runes. But if you are here live with me, please do share your rune of the week, and if something comes up that wants to be said, obviously I'll share that with you to give you that little bit of a what's my take on the way that you can work with your rune through the course of this full moon. So full moon energy. So I'm trying to try and distinguish between the way in which the full moon can impact us. And for some people it can be very much mind-based, like mental-based. I feel very fuzzy right now, or the other way, like loads of ideas are coming all at the same time. Lisa, you're saying in the chat box, full moon always seems to give me a zap. I'm assuming that's a good thing. It's a pleasant zap. So So it can be an intensification of energy, or of thoughts, of ideas coming through, or it can be quite a slow, like, lull time. I found both to be the case. Emotions, now this often comes up, people talk about like lunacy, don't they? There's sort of this or hysteria. That was often seen as being a thing that was like very much like women's bodies and the effect that the moon had on them. And there's been various research that has been done around this, some discrediting and some not. The jury still seems to be out. And I've been thinking about this. I'm going to do a blog article on this this week around this idea of the purpose, what we can work with the moon for, because I think that this is important. For some people, it does bring an intensification of emotions, and sometimes it brings out joy, happiness, bliss. Yay! Sometimes it brings out anger and fear and frustration, and people can be more snappy. Oh, what's going on here? One of my coaches said to me, she said, actually, whether there's any like scientific basis for whether the moon affects us or not really doesn't matter, because I love being able to go, wow, I'm really crotchety today, and then go, oh, it's a full moon. That's okay then. It sort of gives us an explanation that we can work with, so we can get past the why into the, is there anything that I can do about this? And I don't need to beat myself up about it. I can just move on for it. So, there's some practical purposes as well. Very similar to Mercury retrograde, or as we would call it, Odin's chariot in retreat. Sometimes it can be good to just sort of say, yeah, you know what, I'm just going to give myself a break. But yeah, that sense of emotional impact that the moon can have. Then we have the physical impact. Bearing in mind that the moon is having a physical impact on the Earth as it spins with the tides. I sort of think to myself that it would be odd if there was no physical impact. It might just be very, very subtle. It might be very, very different for different people. But it would surprise me if there was no impact. And from my own personal experience, how could it possibly be that I was in coven, and every single woman in that coven for a period of at least a year ended up sinking together around our full moon rituals. And there are some people who will talk about, this is the menstrual cycle now, will say, well, the ovulation tends to occur around the full moon, and the period tends to come around the new moon. And for others, it's switched. It's almost like the moon acts as this anchor, one way or the other, drawing our energy towards it, towards either the dark phase, the new moon dark phase, or the full moon phase, like we have our own tides, and we are being pulled with the tide of the moon. So I personally have found that there are some very obvious connections between my cycle and the moon. Not everybody does, and that's fine. I think the point is to be able to say, how can I work with the moon, and how can I work with the lunar cycle to understand myself and the energy cycles, and to disconnect a little bit from the clock. And then we have spiritual, and I was reading a couple of articles for this, and obviously the dreams comes up a lot. I have much more intensive dreams during the full moon. If I hadn't thought that it was a full moon, and I didn't know that it was a full moon, I would have known it was a full moon from last night's dreams. They can come up. And so from my perspective, what the moon does is it intensifies whatever it is that we might be experiencing. It clears the way a little bit for magical work, for seership work. It enables them to be more potent and more powerful at that time. But it's not the same for everyone. And Esther, you're saying it does affect me, but it's different each time. Not sleeping much. And you're saying Iwaz is your Mani's chariot rune. So yeah, so for you, there's a personal power piece around this full moon in Iwaz then, because it's obviously that's your rune as well. Suka says hello. Lovely, you've got your Ingu's rune as well. Anything for the Ingu's rune? So I do feel a very strong lunar connection with the Ingu's rune, actually, and particularly with the full moon. So for those of you who don't know the Ingu's rune, it's shaped like a little bit of a diamond, and there is that sense of the deep cycles of the earth that bring around the timing of Ingus. So Ingus is the rune of gestation, and you could look at that and you go, well, that makes sense immediately if you think about people knowing that 9 moons, and then the gestational cycle is coming towards its close. But equally, Ingus has this sense in which the energy builds inside the Ingus rune, and it provides us with this innate instinct as to when to act in the moment. So it's trusting that piece. You could work very powerfully with a bind rune with Ingus, and North is around that, with following instinct and saying, like, is this the right time for this now? It might be that you know that it's coming, but it's that timing piece that's important there, Suki. And Suzanne is saying, heavily affected by the full moon, then I was watching my period stop, now the new moon affects me more. And I think that's a really important piece, Suzanne. Thank you for bringing that up. That's certainly something in the women's coaching, when I was trained as a women's coach, that we discussed a lot, is that cycles, although they might be more obvious when you are menstruating, men have cycles as well, and women in menopause and beyond have cycles as well. People can often say that, yes, my cycle flips, or that it follows the moon more than it did before, or that it's longer. That's another thing that people often say, that women often report, is my cycle is no longer than it was before. I've done the opposite of that a little bit. My cycle was very long when I was young, and now it pretty much follows the lunar cycle. Why? Who knows? But yeah, it's useful and it's interesting, and it does. The moon provides us with this sense of rhythm. Of this rhythm that isn't forced, that flows, a rhythm that flows through. So thank you to those of you who are sharing how the full moon is working with your energy. Let me just have a little look at the other runes that we've got. So Carol, you've got Largus and Algus, lovely runes, really lovely runes to work with. Largus, again, because it's the rune of water, absolutely wonderful for working with the lunar energies. It can leave you a little bit more open to the impact of the lunar cycle, because it's a water sign. So if you have Largus, as I do, as my sun rune, or you have it as one of your other birth runes, or you have drawn it and you're working with it as a spirit guide at the moment, the lunar cycle can be really, really helpful for you to tune into, so that you can go, oh, actually this is working for me in this way or that way, or I'm more aware of it. So when you work with Largus, you can become more attuned to the cycles of the moon, just in the way that water is. And the lovely Algus rune, no, doesn't have anything else to add at this point. He's happy with you there, Carol. Maybe a little bit of protective energy, but that's lovely for you there. And Lisa, you are working with Gibo and Isa, so we are going to be looking at Gibo, aren't we? Yes, I did say Gibo. Yes, Gibo is there. Isa, we talked about Isa before. Did we have a new moon in Isa? I want to say we had a new moon in Isa. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that we did. But I love them. What really surprises me is the number of people who I have done birth rune charts for, and gone and done one-to-ones with them. It's a very large number of people with their moon in Isa. Just seems to be this it's a really beautiful, powerful energy. But every now and then I go, I would need to do thousands and thousands of birth runes reports before I got to the point of being able to say, is there any statistical significance around this? But, it's just one of those things, one of my noticings. Maybe people with full moons in Isa are just more likely to go and get their birth runes read. Who knows? And Suzanne, you have Kinaz as your lunar rune. We did Isa. Yes, we did. Thank you, Suzanne. So you had Isa because it was your lunar rune. So yes, I'm not going mad. And then you've got Kinaz for your lunar rune, this rune. So that for you is lovely. That balance between ice and fire is going to work really, really well for you. Almost honouring that that cycle of emptying and the stillness of Isa, and then the filling and the creativity of Kinaz that comes through there. So our planetaries, we've talked about the full moon. So then we have, coming up this month, Frigg's chariot, which is the equivalent of Venus, is going to be moving into Ansus. Now we've already covered Ansus this month, so that's why it's not one of our power runes for this session. But this sense of the stillness that Iwaz brings. So Iwaz is the rune of the staff, and we're going to come back to Iwaz because it's one of our power runes. But if you think about it in terms of there is a stillness that comes with Iwaz, which is similar to Isa, but it's very, very rooted, and it's determined, and it's sort of reaching and drawing the future forwards into it, and bringing everything in. It's the staff, it's also the yew tree yew tree that just keeps going, you know, it endures. And you see these yew trees that sort of look, you think, how are you surviving sort of gnarly, knotted wood, and there's bits growing in all different directions. Iwaz does not care, you know, it's gonna survive, it's gonna keep going. And there is this sort of potent life force, but also a stillness energy. It's very associated with death, because we often find yew trees in graveyards. This symbol of eternal life being there and being present with the dead comes through. And so we have this like anchored energy with the moon in Iwaz. And then Frigg brings along Ansuz. And now Ansuz is normally quite a whirling, freeing energy. It's the rune of the voice, it's the rune of the breath, of Odin spinning through the sky on his chariot and drawing inspiration in. But when Frigg gets Ansuz, she reminds us of the power of silence. And she reminds us that often it is in silence that we hear those deeper whispers, that we need to find those places of silence, which is again why we've been talking about cyclical energy and the way in which the moon draws us into cyclical energy more than clock time does. Obviously there is a cycle with clock time, but it can feel quite mechanical in some ways. There's no nuance from day to day as such. It's the same, like 24 hours, 7 days a week, la la la, la la. But we have this cyclical energy. And Frigg is talking about the value of silence. She says, hear me in your silence. So there is a real sense of this week, this full moon week, being a beautiful week for meditation and for sitting in silence through meditation, and then journaling or writing afterwards. That sense that the inspiration that you are looking for requires the calm and the peace and the tranquility to come through. Now, there are times when for me, for example, when I want to find inspiration, I will often go for a walk, because I find that movement really helps, and that's a lot to do with my own birth runes. That movement piece really helps. But this week is saying, be really aware of the stillness within that. So we have Frigg's chariot moving into Ansuz and offering that sense of silence. And then Odin's chariot will then move later in the week into Uruz. So the rune, let me bring up the Uruz rune for you, the rune of the Aurochs. Here we go. We are going to be looking at Uruz in a little bit more depth, as well as one of our spirit guide power runes today. And this is an interesting energy, because it brings out a particular aspect of Odin. So we've talked about this sort of whirling energy where he's out on the wild hunt, or he's hanging from the world tree, or he's wandering through the worlds. And then we have Uruz, which is this very strong, powerful, formative rune. And for me, it represents the moment where inspiration becomes intention. It's what is it that you need to move from inspiration into, I could, into I will. And through the course of this week, there is a real sense of, within the silence, within the pause, within the deep rooting of Iwaz, of saying, it's not necessarily now you must immediately begin to act, but it is saying, I need to create space for that intention. If I say I will, then how am I going to do the I will becomes incredibly important. So this week is a great time. I spent this morning clearing all of my to-do lists. And I cleared over 100 tasks this morning, either by saying I don't need to do them anymore, or this is the date that needs to be set, or doing them really, really fast. I sat for 2 hours and I just cleared. And that it was so... there was this real sense of release, of like clearing out the cobwebs, of cutting old threads and saying no to that, yes to this, yes but not yet, all of those things. And then saying, okay, this is really helping to concretize the things that are important, the things that need to be done. Well, and this is what Odin is talking about with this energy. Yes, Suzanne, you're saying I cleared stuff yesterday. Yes, I think we often do that in preparation for the full moon as well anyway, don't we? There's almost that sense of, it's perfect for the full moon energy. this sense of moving forward, but it's not always the person who's there going, look at me, look how brilliant I am. It can be the person who is in silence, quietly clearing the way and doing the things that need to be done. You know? That's very much this where Odin is in that moment, perhaps before he ascends the high throne again, the high seat, and takes on this sort of all-father. He might have a private ritual that he does for himself with his drinking horn. There we go. He takes his drinking horn. Huzzah. Yeah. And he makes his pledges. He says, I have been out into the world. I have received inspiration. And now I commit to. He performs perhaps a symbol rite like we did in the half space on Friday, or like we do during our awaken circles. He performs a symbol rite to set those intentions and to say when they will be manifesting in the world, and then his job is to make that happen. You know? Sit on the throne, do the thing, do everything that needs to be done. So it's almost this pause moment, slightly more private moment that Odin is sitting in and inviting us into towards the end of this week. My voice is a little bit froggy, isn't it? I hope that you can all hear me fine. Let's have a look at our runes then. So I've mentioned Iwaz, but let's just make sure that we're fully in that. So if your rune is Iwaz, if you're working with Iwaz as your spirit guide, you're saying I want to claim power and partnership with Iwaz, then you're going to be looking at that real sense of like digging deep, clearing the way, rooting yourself firmly, creating the habits and creating the support infrastructure. That's very important for Iwaz. You might think about Iwaz as being like the staff that you lean on. So when I move forward with my intentions, what support do I need in order to do that? Because I know that I might stumble on the way. You know, so what is it that's going to stop me from doing that? Digging deep in that. That sense of keeping silence sometimes is important as well. Maybe the support that I need right now is only from like a few people. Maybe I want to keep that that silence and not share my bright dreams fully with the world at this point. Perhaps I'm just not ready. Perhaps I want to let them gestate. You know, we were looking at the Ingu's rune, weren't we? So if you've got the Ingu's rune, there might be that sense of patience and of asking the Iwaz rune to act as a cocoon, to act as a keeper of those intentions, and to say, yeah, what needs to happen before I'm ready to make my big announcement or do the big thing. It's all of that comes with the Iwaz rune. Then with the Uruz rune, we've got that. It's great. This is a great week for doing your symbol rite. The full moon is the perfect time. If you have no one else to witness your intentions, Mani, the god of the moon, is a great witness. You know, he sees, he hears, he is behind us all of the way. So you can do your symbol rite for yourself, to really concretize your intentions for the week ahead. It's also a fabulous rune, as many of you will know already, for healing work, for saying, okay, if I'm feeling like I am a little bit, you know, the full moon has knocked my energy a little bit and I'm not sure, you know, I'm a bit discombobulated, a bit all over the place. The Uruz rune is great for chanting and grounding and working with the Stard Galdra, the poses, power poses for the rune as well. It can be really, really good. It's great for creating containers. So if you think about things like your home, your to-do list, your intimate friendship group, all of these things as being like alchemical containers, you know, they are cauldrons, you might say, for energy, you know. And when you look at them in those ways, you could say, well, is my hearth supporting me as fully as it could do? Do I need to reawaken my relationship with my hearth spirits? Do I need to give my hearth a little bit of love in order for it to be the container that I need for my energy and my work in the world? So Uruz offers all of those things. Then our next rune, our next power rune is Gibo. And Gibo builds on this a little bit more because it is a rune of balance, of exchange, of oath making. It really combines beautifully with that Uruz rune. So if you have Gibo, you may well be wanting to think about, you know, we were talking about the clearing. For you, when you're thinking about clearing, reviewing intentions, looking at what you want to leave behind, you want to be thinking about things that you have committed to, that you might need to actively say, you know, I said that I was going to be able to do this. I'm not, you know, or I'm not going to be able to do it for another couple of weeks. It's that resetting expectations piece that comes with the Gibo rune. Equally, if there are things that others have said, or you are expecting, even if they haven't said it, but you're like, I was expecting this and it hasn't happened, Gibo invites you to really bring that those energetic ties that are sort of sitting there underneath the surface, to bring them to the surface and to give voice to them. Gibo, like Ansu's, is a rune very much associated with Odin, and so there is a sense, if you think about this as being the rune of gift giving and oaths and promises, there are levels here. So there are things that we speak out loud or that we write, often quite explicit and well understood, but there are also things that are expected, anticipated, that we grow up in a society that expects this or that from us. And Gibo says, pay attention to those. Pay attention to those. Are you happy with the expectations that are put upon you? And bearing in mind, like Frigg's piece around silence, there is an intentionality here around saying, okay, so, what do I think about? What was a very frivolous example? I've been talking about clothing quite a lot now, and I met a wonderful, just beautiful, it's so much more than like style analysis. A lady who I met at a networking event on Friday, who I really want to bring on and do an in conversation with piece. I'm setting that as one of my intentions. She doesn't know that yet. And she looked at work with colour as being a form of deep healing. When we are working with colours that resonate with our energy bodies and vibrate with us. She didn't use those words, but that's what I heard from that. I heard, just when she explained what she did, there was such a deep healing energy to what she was doing. And I was thinking about the expectations that people have about what you can wear and what you can't wear. I saw a post, one of these posts that goes out and you just think, really, is everyone spending so much time focusing on this beautiful picture of a naked pregnant woman? And the question had put something like, what's wrong with this picture? And I swear to you, I looked at that picture for a good, good 30 seconds and go, well, I can't see anything that's wrong with it. Is the lighting wrong? Is there something that's out of focus? Maybe there's a watermark. I couldn't see it. I was like, oh, I thought, well, I'm going to have to look at the comments, obviously. This is some sort of quiz thing for, find out what it is. And I looked at the comments, just full of people saying, so inappropriate that this woman is naked. Oh, how is she? She's letting down her culture. And this. I was still like, oh, honestly, it didn't even occur to me that they were going to be, that it was about the content of the picture. But those are expectations. Those are cultural expectations that are placed on us. And whether we know in our mind, in our hearts and in our minds, this piece that, the culture that I've been born into requires of me or asks of me things that I don't agree with or that don't feel right to me, what am I going to do about that? And there is still always the choice, to say, I'm going to do nothing. That's a choice. You're allowed to make that choice, to say there are other things in my world that are more pressing to me in this moment. So I am aware that I am uncomfortable with this, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Or you could speak about it. Or you could decide, I'm going to have a fabulous photograph of myself totally naked while I am pregnant to show that that is possible. And to let people know that that is entirely possible to do that. There's a little bit of soapbox moment there. But this is what the Gibo rune invites us into. It says, sometimes we don't even know those expectations that we're trying to fill all of the time. So bring them to the surface, but don't always feel like, you must then become the champion for a new way. Maybe you will be. But Frigg is saying, sit in the silence and allow that to come through. I mentioned journaling, I mentioned meditation, I mentioned walking as well, different ways in which we can start to feel into, why does that feel uncomfortable to me? Breathing into it, breathing under it, what's happening there for me, and bringing that to the surface more. Suzanne says, ooh, this is great to draw in the air around doorways. Ooh. You have to tell me more about that one, Suzanne. I use Dargaz quite frequently, but now I want to know about oohs. Is that, there's so many ways in which I could see that would work. I want to know more. So then the next rune that comes up is Northes, and again all of these runes that have come up this week are very complementary of each other. So here's the Northes rune, and I mentioned that the Gibo rune and the Northes rune have a really intimate relationship with each other. So imagine the tapestry, the great tapestry of life. Some of you will have me talking about this before. And there is a time when I say, I will go to my mum's birthday party with my family. It's going to be great. And an intention is set. And it's like a knot or a weaving takes place within the tapestry. Yeah. And that's all fine and that's all good. And it's like the Norn Skuld, the Norn of that which must be says, okay, you've set that as a promise, and there are expectations around you're going to be doing that. By the way, before I say this piece, I should say, Mum, I am absolutely coming to your birthday party. Whatever discussion I have around how this might be difficult is theoretical. I am going to my mum's birthday party. But then as time moves forward, other things might get in the way. No? Oh, I don't have enough money to pay for the petrol to go on the trip to see Mum. Somebody else is going to be there that I get on with, like, not well at all, and this could create conflict at the party. And is that going to be good for us or not? These things start to come up. And what felt like a really great, this is brilliant, I'm really looking forward to it, it's all really good. I've got both of my children are invited to like their best friends' birthday parties on the same day, and they're desperate to go to that. You can see like these types of things start to come up. And when this happens, we start to get a tugging on the knot. It's starting to get a little bit tense and uncomfortable. And that's when the North's energy comes in. So you can see how now it's pulling, and it's like And this is the point where, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to stick with the promise because I made that promise, and I'm going to stick with it, or am I going to honour some of the other things that have come up, or am I going to honour my financial circumstances and say I can't do this? The North's rune is that feeling inside of going and working with the North's rune to actually feel underneath the energy of the Giba rune, because that promise energy is really powerful for us, and to connect in with our instincts at this point. Yes, there can be some rational pieces as well, so you can do some rational pieces around with the mind. What are the consequences of each of these actions of me not going to the party and doing these things instead? Financially, the birthday parties are going to be expensive anyway. Those types of things come through. But North's also says, what does your gut say? What does your intuition say about what needs to happen? And North's will keep pushing and being uncomfortable until a decision as to how the tapestry needs to be modified, how what should be needs to be modified is undertaken. That's what the uncomfortableness of the North's rune does. It says something is that you have mapped out for the future, that has been set within the future, isn't going to work, and it needs to be modified so that the tapestry can continue to unfurl itself in all its beauty and all its splendour. So if you have the North's rune as your spirit guide, it's very much about connecting with your instinct, honouring your intuitions, and really feeling into that. What does the silence tell me? And then taking action or speaking from that place. Mum, we are still coming to your birthday party, but we're going to be late because we're taking the children to their parties in the morning. Is that still okay with you? Those types of things. Those are the types of things that you would be working on with the North's rune. Our final rune, remembering that at the moment we are doing through this month, we're not always doing 6 runes, we're doing 5 runes today because we had our wildcard week, is the Perthro rune. And again, all of these runes are coming together very strongly. So the Uru's rune and the Perthro rune have a lovely relationship with each other here. So you can see that they're both container runes. You can turn them and they become containers, like holding energy, and they're both very intimately associated. I don't know why I'm rocking them backwards and forwards, I'm just quite enjoying that. Okay, stop. They hold the energy within them, the energy of weird within them in particular. Now I absolutely have to go through all of my runes and make sure there's no other container runes. Ewaz is a container rune as well, but we're not doing Ewaz today unless it really wants to speak to me. It's sort of shouting at me now and saying, I'm a container rune as well. We shall do Perthro first, and then we might have a little bit of time for Ewaz as well. So Perthro and Uruz both deal with weird. Uruz is related to urd, the Norn of that which was. It is the ulog, the flow of the past into the present, the sort of unbreakable pieces, the structure and container of all things. This is why Odin, he sees all of these possibilities, and then it's the Ursrun. With the Ursrun, he takes up the drinking horn and he proclaims his oaths. That draws in the Gibai rune. But it's the Ursrun that is that formative energy that is used to create that. Now, Perthro is slightly different. Perthro is less in our control. So, you know, we have all of our intentions and they're set, and that's brilliant. And then Perthro comes along, and you know, maybe Urd says to Odin, "This is all well and good, but you might have forgotten this karmic thread down here, where the elves, you know, performed deep magics long ago, and we're going to come along and we're going to bring some strange new being into your life right now. It's going to scupper all of your plans, and you're going to have to roll with that, Odin." You know, it's the sort of deep karma that Perthro represents, that brings stuff up that's might not be ours. It's often ancestral. It's often ancestral or collective fate that comes flooding up. The myths tell of Yggdrasil being rooted, the Iwaz tree, you know, rooted, it's stable, everything's going fine, and then every now and then the waters of the Well of Weird will flood out. They'll flood across all of the worlds, and the Iwaz rune, or the world tree, and the humans will hide in it, and it will protect them while the floods are taking place. And then they'll come out and they'll emerge, and the world sort of being reborn through this time. So Perthro brings a disruptor energy to our Uru's rune, and it is this reminder to prepare for the unexpected. So you're going to set your intentions, but make sure that you have left a little bit of space for the unexpected. And know whether you're comfortable with this or not. No? How comfortable are you with unexpected things coming, whether they are supposedly unpleasant or pleasant? Some people, you know, regardless of what the thing is, will always be like, "No, I don't like it." No, I have what I call the pause moment. Here's my mug. See, this says pause on it. It's probably backwards for you, but it says pause. It's a very useful reminder for me, because I am somebody who does not like my plans to be disrupted. I look forward to things that I'm doing. I work very hard to make them happen. And when something new comes along, I'm like, "Oh no." And if I count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that bit of me that's like, "No, I'm a weaver. I am weaving the future," goes, "It's okay. Maybe there's an opportunity here. Maybe there's something that, you know, something even better that you hadn't considered, and then I can work with it. But I have to have the pause. I know that that's about me." So with your Perthro rune, you may well be looking at that. It might be about that relationship between, okay, I'm looking to set intentions, and I'm digging deep, and I'm creating containers, and I'm doing all of the stuff that Maggie just said, and then everything's gone a bit awry, and this whole totally unexpected thing has come up. That's your Perthro energy coming through. So it's, you might want to say to yourself, okay, so do I need to create some time in the week for the unexpected, for the serendipitous, to have its say, to have its moment. So you can say, I feel off balance with something new suddenly comes along. Yeah, I think it's a really good way of describing it, Suki. It is. That moment is similar to the way that the inner ear works, that if everything suddenly goes off kilter, your body needs to take time to get its bearings. I think about it like when when you dive into water, and people who do the spinning, you know, when you spin into, I don't do this anymore because my body isn't what it was, but you know, you would dive and you would spin, and then you get into the water, and the only way of telling like which way up was up, if you don't have your goggles on, you probably look for the light as well, but would be to let your body float, and then to go, oh, you know, my body wants to go this way, and then to rise to the surface. That's very much what the Perthro rune represents. Thank you. It's a really helpful piece in there. So it's a reorientation. And if you've got the Perthro rune, you might want to put a little bit of time in recognising that you're going to need to do a bit of reorientation work through the course of the week. Now, Elwaz wanted to come along. You see the Elwaz rune. So the Elwaz rune looks like this. People often say, well, why does it look like that when it looks like an M, doesn't it? If you put it on its side, it looks a bit more like an F. A little bit. You have to, you know, stretch the imagination a bit. But when it's faced like this, it does become a container. And because it's the rune of partnership, it's about the it's containing the energies that come when we work with others. You know, so we talked about the Perthra rune being like deep karma coming up, and the Uruz rune about being intentions that we set that can feel quite personal. And then the Ewaz rune is saying, well, what happens with Odin and Frigg on the throne when they are both working to hold the space, this sort of space of collaboration. So Ewaz is your collaboration space. And I think the reason it was important for me to mention that is that my mastery circle, my new mastery circle, is meeting for the first time for our year of work together. And we are digging really deep into the magic of collaboration through the course of this year. So then the Ewaz rune wanted to say, don't forget me. 3 runes that are the containers for weird. Personal, collective, including stuff that's not even ours, that comes up from the past and that we're dealing with. You might think about it as maybe a social, and then like interpersonal, specifically between partners who are creating intentions together and might have slightly different roles, slightly different expectations, slightly different values, all of those pieces, and the work that needs to be done to create that container. It's a very interesting piece there. So happy full moon to all of you. I hope that I have covered everybody's runes who have been here live. Thank you to all of you who have been here live. Pamela is saying Uruz, yes, and we have covered Uruz, so that is great. Yeah, I think that we have done everybody. So, wishing you a wonderful, magical week ahead, hoping that the full moon brings you the blessings for your intentions, that it brings you that space of like quiet and silence and peace so that you can move forward powerfully through the second phase of our lunar cycle. Love to you all. See you all very, very soon.